Okay, good evening. Welcome to tonight's very special Discover ASEA. My name is Alan Nobile. I will be celebrating my 15th year, 15 years talking about this astonishing technology next week. So it's been an amazing 15 years of lives changed with this technology. And I'm getting the night off tonight. I am being replaced with an absolutely remarkable human being, Dr. Mark DeBrincat, who is going to share his perspective on our incredible ASEA Redox technology. Just to introduce Dr. Mark quickly here, 30 years of chiropractic experience, specializing in brain and spinal trauma. He'll tell his own story here, a near-death accident, almost fatal car accident, and he had to go through his own healing processes. And really tapping into that incredible power that lies inside all of us. And then he will explain how ASEA Redox played a role towards the end of that recovery. But Dr. Mark will also share what is ASEA Redox from his perspective. It's going to be an incredible presentation. And then towards the end, Dr. Mark DeBrincat is going to explain how ASEA impacts brain health. We talk about this technology impacting every system, every organ, every function of our body. Well, our neurological system is a very important system. And so Dr. Mark has taken 60 people through brain mapping for 90 days and will show us some before and afters. Absolutely irrefutable proof that this technology works. So you've got an amazing call ahead of you. Dr. Mark, thank you so much for joining us on the call here tonight. I cannot thank you enough. I know that our listeners are going to be just absolutely blown away by what you're going to share here tonight. So I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to let you share your presentation. And again, just very, very grateful. So over to you, Dr. Mark.
Well, thank you, Alan, and quite an honor to have me on your show. I really appreciate that, and we love what you've done for the field, and all the tools and everything you've created have made our journey a whole lot easier over these last few years as well. So as I said, it's an honor. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and share my screen. So, as Alan said, we're going to be talking about the brain cells tonight and really what makes the brain so special. So to begin with all of that, I'm going to first share my personal testimony and why this is important to myself and to my wife. This was years ago after I was already in practice, specializing in brain and spinal trauma. We were in a head-on collision and I was left disabled. My wife broke her neck. I had other injuries through my spine and through my pelvis that took me years to recover. And in fact, they told me I wouldn't get out of my chair and I should just learn to accept my life the way it is. They meaning my surgeons and my doctors that, helped manage my pain and discomfort. And I'm just a fighter. And so I can't help but not agree with the diagnosis if I don't want to live with those facts. And so I fought really hard. I looked at things outside the box, inside the box, had 7 surgeries, had a computer even implanted in my spine just to try to make the pain stop. And at the end of it all, I realized that, you know what? I agree, I have a lot of injured tissues and I have a lot of injuries in my body, but there's something inside of me that's always making a new version of myself, meaning each cell only has a certain amount of a lifespan and then it has to replace itself. And so I started getting hope that the next version of myself is going to be better than this one. So it wasn't a matter of if I could improve, it was when was the improvement going to happen and where was that next miracle breakthrough and so forth in my journey. And so we found a breakthrough and that gave me so much inspiration that I fought for another one and then another one and another one. And pretty soon my body started overcoming the impossible. And within a year of getting out of my wheelchair, getting my legs back and my arms back and all my functions back, I was still very limited. I could only walk maybe 200 steps at a time, and I could only lift about 10 pounds. And then I got on these amazing redox molecules. And within just a few months, I found myself with what we refer to as resilience. I could walk and walk and walk. I could play golf. I could lift things. I helped my kids build their trampoline with a sledgehammer and cinder blocks that we had to level everything. And I'm like, what is this? And I didn't even put it together till years later that these molecules were the beginning part of me maintaining my freedom. And so I am just so excited to share with those that, live with issues, that live with conditions, that it's just a matter of how much redox do you have and how long have you been consuming it? Because I quickly found what we consider our Goldilocks dose, which is the perfect amount of redox for me to have no neuropathy pain in my hands and feet, no spinal pain, no extremity pain. I literally would feel like I fall apart, like it's Cinderella and it just struck midnight and all my stuff falls apart if I don't consume these molecules every 24 hours. And so for me, I'm instantly reminded as my discomfort comes back that, oh my gosh, how much have I had today? And so these molecules are so amazing, and they've given me a quality of life that I could only imagine that I would never have had ever again. And now this last month, my wife and I just attended the Ascent conference and celebrated our 29th anniversary and 8.5 years with having our freedom. It's been a little over 9 years since I've been out of my chair, or 10 years since out of my chair, 9 years since I've been, back with all my function again. So um, I hope that can be an inspiration to some of you that may feel stuck, may have had an injury or a trauma in the past and thought, well, this is my life now. The doctor said I should just be happy with what I can do. Well, sure, I'm happy with what I could do, but I know I could do more. And I know you can too. I believe in the human potential, and it all boils down to, do we have the potential or not? And when we do, there's this amazing healing that can happen inside each and every one of us. And so I was super blessed that a patient of mine named Sherry Clark, that got her on my chiropractic table, and she wasn't too shy to turn around and ask me if I knew what redox molecules were. Now, granted, we did start talking about all the cool technologies I have in my office, and she was familiar with so many of them. And she was telling me about other things that she's done in her health journey. But I think so often people are just intimidated by their doctors and think that they're closed-minded, they wouldn't learn. She didn't know at the time all that I've been through, and that for 17 years I have been seeking a solution to get me out of that chair and out of my pain, and just my life back again. So I've tried literally everything. And the fact that I had never heard of redox signaling molecules before, she had me intrigued. And then the more we started talking about it, the more she started talking like innate intelligence, like, oh, you're talking innate, the worker that gets all the stuff done inside of you. And so, long story short, I've never looked back. She's been amazing. Her and Jack have literally helped support all my patients for all these years. And now I've retired from chiropractic, and we have decided to, fully embrace helping people in any way we can. And this truly is an alpha product. This is where it all begins, meaning the healing within inside. So I challenge you, let me show you a picture and let me ask you a question. What do you see? Most of you, I think, are going to say a glass that's half full. Some of you might say half empty. You know what? Both of you are correct. These are two truths that are absolutely true, but it just depends on the perspective of who's looking at it. Now, I'm going to challenge you. What if I said, I see the glass all full, half air and half water? There's a third truth that you may never have heard before or thought about, but you can't argue that it's still true. So what I'm about to share with you tonight is absolutely true. It may be a different opinion or a different vantage point than what you're familiar with or the way that you see your life, but that doesn't mean that it's not accurate. And so open your minds and receive how our body works and how our body heals itself. And of course, why we're here tonight. Why is the brain cell so special other than any other part of our body? We need our whole body, but why is the brain so special? So let me share this. We heal from the inside out always, and it always starts as molecules that turn into transcribing the DNA and then implanting themselves into your new cell. And now you have become whatever type of cell that is, and it never competes to be anything else for the rest of its existence. From the cells turn into tissues. The tissues turn into organs. The organs turn into systems, and the systems becomes an organism. So no matter which way you slice it, healing always begins at the molecular level, helping the cells repair, regenerate, recoup, or just replace them altogether. So if that's where healing begins, well, what harms our body? Well, everything from the outside in multiple ways are going to break down the communication of our cells at that cellular level. So how does it grow? How do we heal? This is a camera looking inside an infant, watching the nerves actually grow. Now, this is time-lapsed. 1 second equals 30 seconds in real time. And you're seeing molecules being transformed into nerve tissue. And our nervous system is doubling every 6 months for the first 3 years of life. There is so much of this neogenesis happening where the molecules are laying down new tissue and forming life. So this is the stream of life. This is where all healing begins. As I mentioned, we make redox signaling molecules to transcribe the DNA. If we have a lot of them, I'm going to get a real clean version of that DNA. If I'm lacking, I might find a copy of a copy, okay? But regardless, once the stem cell turns into whatever cell it's been designated, there's a lifespan. Now, fortunately, our brain cells last forever, as long as they're functioning, and they could take months or years to heal if they can heal. Your intestines, the lining is just 2 to 4 days. You got a whole new lining. In 1 to 3 weeks, your whole intestinal tissue has been replaced. So there's hope, okay? Your liver, 14 days to repair, sometimes years to heal from damage. Your heart's replaced every 6 months and your bones just under a year. So it doesn't matter what kind of cell you become or which one of the 100 trillion cells in your body we're talking about, they all have a common denominator. We are bioelectrical beings. That means we're alive. That means our cells have life in them. And that life is equivalent to about 70 to 100 millivolts. So if you think of a battery and the charge you have on that battery, if our cell walls can maintain this electrical charge, we are considered healthy. We can function and the cell can do everything that it's supposed to do. Now, that charge comes from a little thing inside that cell called a mitochondria. Now, it looks like this little orange jelly bean floating around in here. And think of those as the powerhouse of the cell. This is how our cell makes the energy to keep itself charged. If it's not charged, remember, we're not healthy. So all of these little molecules you see coming out of our little mini jelly bean there are called redox signaling molecules. And guess what? They're made in every mitochondria, in every single cell in your body. So it's kind of important. These are the molecules that we use to make energy and to help the cells communicate and signal, hence cell signaling molecules. So these are native to the body, which means every cell in your body makes them to protect, detect, repair, and replace any of those damaged cells. So again, kind of important. We wouldn't live for 3 minutes without being able to produce these cells, these molecules within each and every one of our cells. So if they're considered a little engine, well, let's call it that. Let's call it this little V8 engine inside our cells. They're controlling the delicate balance between oxidative stress and our redox signaling. So much like an engine, it's going to produce energy, but it's also going to produce a waste product. That's called metabolic waste. It's the waste that we're creating just for our metabolism to function. Not so much the waste from outside. Yes, that's part of it too, but the majority of the waste in your body comes from these engines inside your own cells. So we make redox molecules to clean it up and to keep our cells functioning and healthy. Now, depending on how important your cell is, it determines how many engines you have. So the gut cell, we said it only lasts 2 to 4 days, and the lining of your gut, those are real simple cells. They only have 3 mitochondria per cell. They're easy to replace. They're not very complicated. Now, the rest of your body is average 2 to 300 mitochondria per cell, depending on what type of tissue you're talking about. Your heart's special. It doesn't get a rest. It doesn't get to sleep. It has to work 24 hours a day. It needs 8,000 of those engines. So you can imagine how much more oxidative stress your heart is putting off than the rest of your body. Remember, the more mitochondria, the more important the cell is, also the more complicated it is for your body to make a new one of those, and it takes longer. Well, here's why I wanted to call tonight's call, Why Are Brain Cells So Special? Well, nerve and brain cells have 2.5 million engines per cell. That just made them 2.5 million times more important than any other cell in your body. But nobody talks about it. Why? Because until now, we didn't really know what affects the brain health and the cells in our brain for everybody. Certain things affect some people better than other, but really, where's the beginning of the stream where healing starts? We talked about that. It's molecules. It's molecules coming out of those engines. So if you have 2.5 million of them in your brain, boy, your brain must get pretty hot. And in that same note, know that your brain is only 2% of your body weight, yet it consumes 20% of your blood. We have to keep the fire out, okay? Because it wants to get hot and it wants to keep burning, and those engines want to rev, and we need to calm them down and keep them cool. So we require all that blood to do so. And you know what? We're the only species on the planet that requires 20% of our blood flow for 2% of our body weight. That's another amazing fact that we all need to appreciate. So what are these redox molecules and how do we use them? Well, if you can believe it, you make the equivalent of your body weight every day in ATP, which is the energy. That's half of the output of your mitochondria. It makes energy and it makes molecules. So the energy represents ATP, like a top. And this top is making a lot of energy spinning around the inside of this cell. But eventually it slows down and then it wobbles and stops. Well, in order to keep your cell walls charged, you have to keep producing energy from these tops. Now, here's the thing, you only have 50 grams of them in your body, but you said, or I said earlier, that we're going to consume our body weight every day. Well, how we do that is we have to tie a string around that top and pull it again, and that gets it spinning. And in fact, we have to do that 1,500 times a day. So think of ATP as the top, and the person pulling the string is the team redox, okay? It's the redox molecules that are spinning the ATP in order to charge our cell walls. So I mentioned it earlier, the only difference between a healthy person and a sick person is the healthy person, their cells have potential, which means they're holding an electrical charge. And a sick person doesn't. And so it doesn't matter what condition you call it. We're not treating conditions. We're acknowledging how the body heals and how the body can't heal very well. And it all boils down to the charge, not the condition, the electrical charge your cells can hold. So our redox molecules that we're making, they have basically two main functions. The first one we just talked about. Half of all your energy every single day is going to go to just charge the cell wall, so my cell can function. How different is it from your cell phone? If it's not charged at night and I don't have a full battery during the day, I'm not going to be able to use it very often. And then I'm going to have to just look at it. It'll look like a phone, but it's not going to function like a phone without a battery. So the other part of the phone and our cells is their ability to communicate. Okay, and so it's basically getting your cells online. Your body has a language that the nervous system communicates with. Redox signaling molecules make up the letters of that language. It's as simple as that. So the other half of your energy is used just to keep you at full bars. So my cells can talk to the other cells and create this cascading effect, and I can actually communicate. What good is the cell phone if I can't get online or if I can't call for help? I could have a charge, but I can just play with apps. It's not going to do me any good to save my life. We have to have both functions happening and happening often in order for us to be healthy. So it's really simple. These molecules are improving the charge and improving the communication. Why does it do that? Well, we have this zone that we live in called homeostasis. And this is what resilience looks like. You've heard the word before. What does resilience mean? Well, when I'm living in homeostasis, I literally have a full charge and I have a whole bunch of redox that I have available to be able to bring my body back home if I get pulled out of this beautiful, healthy zone that we love to live in called homeostasis. I could have something stressful happen and it's challenging my cells. It could be temperature, it could be physical, it could be chemical, it could be a lot of different things in how we challenge our body daily. And if I don't neutralize that stress, I might get pulled somewhere else right away too. And it might get more severe to where it's causing one event building on the other, causing me to be even more upset. Well, all that means is it's just going to take more to get me back home. So you have this redox potential. How much redox is it going to cost you to get home? The further away you go, you're going to spend all day just trying to find your way back to homeostasis because your nervous system's number one priority is to keep you alive. And being alive means homeostasis. That means your heartbeat, a certain amount of beats per minute, breaths, 14 to 17 breaths per minute. Your temperature has to maintain 3 degrees, otherwise things start happening. It's not good. And then, of course, your blood is the narrowest margin of life. 7.35 to 7.45 is what we call your pH. Now, pH means voltage potential. How ironic that that goes along with exactly what we're talking about with redox molecules. They're charging our cells to give it voltage potential. At homeostasis, you have 100% charge. The further away from neutral pH, and it doesn't matter if it's acid or if it's alkaline, the further away, the more of a charge it just stole from your cell. Well, here's the problem. If you're really far from home and your cell phone died, you're kind of in trouble. You're going to have to walk, or you're going to have a long way before you can communicate with somebody. And so it's not like, oh, I'll just cash in my extra redox in my back pocket and then it's charged again. Unfortunately, before now, you didn't know that that could happen, but now it actually can happen. And so redox is what gives us that resiliency to make it through the day with enough reserve left over to heal my body at night. How about that? So here's a perfect example of an average person's day. They might start off with a meal that wasn't really honoring to their body, and it just cost them a little extra redox than the current course that they were burning it. And then at lunch, they maybe made another poor choice, and it cost them a little extra more. And then on the way home, they had a bunch of road rage because they were mad at somebody cutting them off, and it cost them a little more. By the time they got home, they had very little to none left. Where you could choose your day a little differently and maybe have a healthy meal that's easy to digest and that's going to bring protein and nutrients to your body, and you gain a little bit. And then you have a healthy lunch, like something that actually grew from the ground or ran on the ground. You're going to gain a little bit. Then you get home and go for a bike ride and watch the sunset. And guess what? Exercise means you gain a little bit. So you can end up with a little more, or you could end up with a little less. Our choices are going to make a difference in how much redox we're using throughout the day. And so the question really goes to is, what plan are you living? Am I trying to stay in homeostasis? Because let me say, if you have to heal something in your body, homeostasis is first, healing is secondary. To get a leg up on healing, you have to be able to live in homeostasis longer. That's the whole key and the secret to finding a better version of yourself within. But unfortunately, nobody can stay in homeostasis. We're always challenged. we're always having some kind of stress hit our body, and that's just part of being human, is that resilience to bounce back quickly. But in reality, most people's lives look like this, and that is not easy. You've lost your charge, you've lost your redox potential, and now your poor cells, they just can't fight back. And so they're gonna lose. And the only way to give them power again is to recharge. So we sleep is when we recharge our cells and make them healthy again. But here's the question. At the end of the day, how much do you have left over? Do you have enough left over to actually get a good night's sleep? You know that 75% of all your new cells that you're going to lay down in one day happen during 1 hour of deep sleep. And if you don't get that sleep, you missed it. You don't make up for it on the weekend by sleeping in all day. You're damaging your cells when you're not getting rest and you're not able to repair them. So how about when you get sick or if you get injured? Do you heal slowly or do you get better really quickly? Do you bounce back? All of that is showing you how much resilience you have. So what if I were to say, I could give you a whole extra glass of Redox when you wake up in the morning? And so by the end of the day, when you used to only have a little, now you have an abundant amount to go into that sleep, into that healing zone. Well, you'd say, Mark, that's impossible. You can't make more. Your cells only know how to make as much as they can make. You can conserve a little or lose a little, but inevitably we only have a glass to start with. Well, now we have the fortunate, amazing ability to be able to consume that second dose for ourselves and give it to us in a supplement called redox signaling molecules. These are the exact same molecules that every cell is making to do the exact same job. So it's impossible for this not to work. Within seconds from the time it's in your mouth, it's already going to the parts of your body that need extra healing. That's how it works. It's native to the body. It's not saying, hey, what are you doing here? It's saying, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be upstairs. They need your help. Come on, go, go, go. Remember, these molecules are so tiny, they can absorb through anything. They activate and turn on and off switches, which create this cascading effect to build resilience in the body and have all the cells and neighboring cells follow suit. This is how we build our resilience. It's living reckless not to have a reserve. Do you keep your vehicle in the red on E? And every time you pass a gas station, you put 50 cents in? Make sure I can get to the next gas station? That's how your body uses redox. It uses everything, and you only get what you got. And every little bit that you do is just getting you to the next gas station. By consuming these molecules, you have 450 miles to go before I need to stop at the gas station again. It's always giving you a full tank. How much more comfortable are you feeling that I'm not going to run out of gas when I have a full tank? That's what these molecules do. So let's talk about the brain now and how the brain actually heals. We know that it's super important that these cells have 2.5 million more engines creating oxidative stress than any other part of our body. But the brain cells, they're going to be the same cells you were born with and the same cells you're going to die with. They don't replace themselves like the rest of your body. Now, they can repair themselves, hopefully most of the time, and you can grow new ones if you're being challenged and you're learning something. That's the only time you kick in and start growing new tissues on top of the tissues that are already there. But after 25 years old, your brain's done growing. Now, the only way you're going to grow it is by keep being a forever student and always learning things. So those brain cells want to do one thing and one thing only: send information, period. So they need to be repolarized every single night while you're sleeping. And then you can wake up and send information all day long until they run out. Okay. So they're bathed in redox molecules and you're going through all your sleep cycles. That's how it's charging your cells and getting you to be able to have that resilience. So the number one goal is to restore your brain health, is to consume redox signaling molecules. So I'm in the world of brain health. We do brain mapping, which we can do a 3D image of your exact brain's neurology and tell you everything about your life. We also do neurofeedback, which allows us to target certain parts of your brain and then aggressively grow new tissue in these areas to help overcome injuries, much like myself. I'm living proof that all of this works. And so here's the thing. before I met Sherry, we were limited to about 30 minutes, maybe close to 45 or an hour in some cases of brain training before your brain just petered out. You create so much oxidative stress so fast that you shift over into inflammation mode and you start to get a headache and you just have to stop. And so for all these years prior, we have been trying to biohack the brain and figure out how we can squeeze more time in and grow more tissue. Because as long as you're training, you're growing tissue. So as I mentioned, the neuroplasticity globally is pretty much a 30-minute window. Twice a week is what they would do. And since ASEA came into my life, not only did I have my own personal testimony, but immediately we found the hack we've been looking for. And our patients now for the last 9 years, close to, have been able to go twice as far. They're doing 2 to 4 hours of neurofeedback every single day, never hitting inflammation, never getting a headache, recovering as fast as they're training, and being able to do 2 years of this type of training in 1 month. This has been crazy. I've been looking over my shoulder for years thinking, how come everybody hasn't figured this out? This is insane. We can take people and give them wings to fly and to find those breakthroughs that we keep talking about in sometimes days and weeks, not months and years. It is so amazing when you give the body potential, how it can adapt and what it can do to overcome even things like traumatic brain injuries. And so all these years using this, we have been able to double how far we could take a patient in the same amount of time, which has been fascinating. But I've never really taken the time to isolate what is just ASEA doing on the brain without neurofeedback, without all the other nutrients, without all the other therapies. And let's just focus on one thing. I honestly was very curious about this. And so we started out, had close to 60 people, as Alan said. I think it ended up being more like 55 at the end of it. And so we had these patients get a brain map done, agree to take 8 ounces of ASEA a day for 90 days, and then they would get a post map. Now, they weren't allowed to do any new therapies or any new vitamins or nutrients during this time that they haven't already been on. We really wanted to try to keep the reins tight and know exactly what was happening. And let me just say, when we see a total percent change of neurology of 5%, we get super excited. We're seeing a range from 40 or in the 30s to the 70s, which is truly amazing. So the percent change of these people's brain while they're sleeping average 52%. And we're seeing percentages all over the place, but the average of all of that was 52%. And then during the day, 51%. This is truly incredible. Now, this is no other therapies. You're just consuming molecules that are repolarizing your brain cells, and we're seeing all different parts of the brain map come back alive, come back online. Parts of your own brain connecting and communicating better in ways that you haven't been able to do for sometimes years for a lot of these people. It really is awesome. So then the other phenomena that we're seeing a lot of is the right and left brains being disconnected. It happens more than you think, where somebody say, oh, they're an engineer or they're an artist, okay, because they're living analytically in the left side or creatively in the right side. But it's not so much like that. When you're disconnected, you're not able to see other point of views really easy and appreciate why somebody else has an opposing opinion of you. You just think everybody's lost their mind and I'm the only one sane in the room. I don't understand. And so it's interesting phenomena. Also, hand-eye coordination usually isn't very well, and they can be very indecisive when they don't have connections. Like they just settle for everything. They don't really know what they want to do or what they don't want to do or what they want to eat or don't want to eat. And so we're seeing a 44% connections back with just being on these molecules for a few months. The top row was the initial scan, and right below it is the post scan. And we're looking for things that turn green and that start glowing. And so it truly is amazing to see this much change. And then we're going to also track everybody that was in the study to see if they are showing positive for a concussion. This is the same software that military and professional sports use to determine, can you be on the field? If you're in the gray, you can play. If you're outside the gray, not today, okay? And so whether that's an injury from a sports or from, let's say, a bomb or a concussion from a blast, And so all of these things affect your brain in a lot of ways. Well, we can find out exactly how it affects it, what part of your brain is damaged, what networks in the brain were damaged. And so for this case in particular, it caused anxiety. They had a grade 3.8 concussion, so they would not be on the field. They caused anxiety, language comprehension issues, mood swings, and then executive function problems. That's working memory, mental flexibility, and self-control. So we're going to finish the study. We're about 25 people completed so far. And as I finish that study, we'll come out with a beautiful presentation of all the different ways that we can slice and dice the brain. I wanted to just share some preliminary findings on the first half of the people in the study that was amazing. So we see things like we can see trauma. Here we can recreate the entire cortex of your brain, and I can peel away layers to see how deep the injury went. The impact is where the red area is, and that's more inflammation. And then the counter coup, the more damage takes place opposite. So this gives us a line of drive from how they were hit or from the trauma. And so the blue is representing the gray and the white matter hitting and then coming back at two different speeds, which twist and turn off some of those connections, damage some of them, they'll never come back. Some stretch, come back and work just fine. So the whole part of revamping somebody's brain and bringing it back to life and helping bring it back to homeostasis, we don't know which parts in the blue that we can wake up initially. So we have to challenge the brain and see what is possible. Okay, we can always calm down a brain on fire, the red and yellow brains of inflammation. Those are easier for us to calm down. But we can objectively look at these maps and know nothing about you. And I can tell you everything that you do and how you act and how you feel and why you're feeling and acting and doing the things that you do. By dividing your brain into the different categories, you're using either your delta, theta, alpha, or beta during different times of the day to do different tasks. So we can see gray here would be normal. All the colors are off. Okay, it's too fast or too slow, causing issues. And so we can also see cognitive risks of these neurocognitive diseases in elderly years typically, but there's a 3-strike rule to determine, for cognition, how close are you to point of no return. Okay, and so that's just important to know these things, especially if you've had traumas in the past. It's more than just a trauma. It could be an infection in the brain. It could be heavy metals that made it into the brain, or even, a season of chronic emotional stress. It can certainly decline the way that the cells in the brain can communicate. Okay, and so our first and foremost goal for every patient that's looking for a breakthrough in their life is maximize resiliency. This becomes the most important supplement that you could ever put in your body. Now, prior to this, I've taken a lot of vitamins my whole life. I've been a health food nut. My parents were health food nuts in the 70s, and that wasn't common back then. But since I was 6 or 7 years old, I take a whole handful of vitamins every day. And to me, that is my life insurance. This is what my body needs, whole food supplements to break down easily so I can absorb and assimilate and be a healthy version of myself. Now, it's the rest of the day that I eat clean and avoid toxins. Well, I couldn't tell you which one of my handful of vitamins were most important. They're all important. That's why they made it into my hand. But now I can tell you without a doubt, I would never live for a day without ASEA. This predates every other thing that you're doing, as far as supplements go, as far as food goes, as far as exercise and everything else goes. You need molecules to function. Central nervous system and your nervous system trumps everything. It's most important for it to communicate. We put so much time and effort into body parts and organs, and we don't give the attention to our brain, which if we just gave our brain the potential that it has the ability to heal you faster than you can even know. Now, this supplement is what redox signaling molecules is, and it's easily absorbable. Like I said, we're the only company in the world that ever stabilized these molecules outside the body. It's the equivalent to saying I got a glass of hot and cold water in the same glass, and they're separate. Drinking from this side, it's hot. Drinking from that side, it's cold. It doesn't work that way. Physics won't let that. It'll just be warm. Okay, so you got positive and negative electrons in the same bottle that are so stable, they don't neutralize each other until they touch something organic like your mouth. This is truly amazing. It will be a game changer for you, I promise. It's going to improve the ability for your body to bounce back, stay in that homeostasis zone longer, and bring out that best version of you. These are the cells that your body makes. Every cell in your body makes these molecules, and that's why it's native to the body. That's why it doesn't have to figure out what to do with it. You just need to consume it. Your cells know exactly what to do with it. And what they're going to do is they're going to keep you at this thing called homeostasis. Faster, more abundantly, longer, to get you that leg up on healing. That leg up on healing is how we get strength, resiliency, and how we recover. Okay, it keeps us strong from within. So I'm going to end with saying that ASEA and Renew 28 are not intended to diagnose, treat, or prevent any diseases or medical conditions. We are a supplement, and this supplement is actually going to help your body heal itself. Your body is the only thing that can ever heal itself. Drugs and medications can save our life, can maintain our vital signs, but not necessarily heal us. Okay, it's that innate healer inside of you that makes these molecules to begin the job. Okay, so as long as we're always giving credit back to the body for doing the credit and not a product for doing the healing, then we'll always be safe. And thank goodness that this is not a drug, because then it would need a prescription and most likely still be in IV form, and we wouldn't be able to have these for all of us to consume easily. So we are so grateful for ASEA and the team at ASEA Global that has created these molecules and brought them now into, I think it's 34 countries around the globe. And so we're just so excited to be part of this mission and be able to help people with root cause illness. So many people have been looking and looking and have truly never found the answer until today. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope you learned a little bit about Redox tonight that maybe you didn't know before. And hopefully that'll have an impact on how you treat your body and your family's bodies from this day forward.
Dr. Mark, that was a phenomenal presentation. I've been sitting here on the edge of my seat. If I was to comment on everything that I would love to comment on, we will be here for another hour. There was just so many nuggets in that presentation, from your own story, your beautiful explanation of these molecules, and of course, into more detail on how these molecules and how the supplement can impact our brains. I'm just going to simply say thank you. Very grateful. You maxed out our lines today. We had over 1,000 people on tonight's webinar. And so people were very, very hungry for this information. We will make a recording available, and we'll do that as soon as possible. It'll be available by Friday morning. So I just want to extend my thanks on behalf of everybody that was here listening, glued to every word that you were saying. I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for just your beautiful transparency and your authenticity as you delivered tonight's information. So very grateful. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Alan. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I know some people, it's really late at night or really early in the morning, and you still got up and got on. So we appreciate that. And I look forward to next time, Alan.
Beautiful. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.